Hey guys, RC back with episode 2 of our new updated tutorial. Again, I'm focusing on recruiting this time. We will go through some of the game planning, but this is going to be basically a season-long walkthrough of recruiting. I've been having a major problem with recruiting in the online league that I'm in with LSU, which is why I'm playing with them, just to get a little more practice, but also so other people, maybe some of the developers, if they see something I'm doing wrong, they can point it out. That'll help all of us. And if they see that, hey, he's doing it kind of the way it's meant to be done, and he's still having issues, maybe he's not lying about having issues, because that's kind of been insinuated. But anyway, moving on. Make sure you turn auto recruiting off. Once you do that once, you should not have to change that again. All right, we were going through this guide, and we were talking about the recommended targets as opposed to people not on your recommended list, and how you should look at that. The further away you get from the top rated player on your list, the harder it will be to recruit them. So if your top rated guy is, if you're at a small Sunbelt school and your top rated guy is number 840, you might be able to get up into the 700 range, but don't expect to get a top 500, top 400, or a top 250 recruit in the country. Not to say it couldn't happen. You've got to go through and see who has offers and things of that nature, but you've got to be willing to cut bait too. Let's see. What next? There is what determines if a player likes me? Well, let's click on this player. I'm not going to add him. I'm just going to click on his name. All right. So here's his, his baseball card, for lack of a better thing to call it. So there's a couple of things here. You have a special. You have to interview them to see that. Tells you who's recruiting them. It gives a verbal key or code as far as what their ability is in each category. Same thing for some of their profile. And then this section here values market size, security, loyalty, winning, playing time, close to home, and prestige. Those are things that give you indicators on whether you've got a chance to land that player. You only find that out by doing an interview on the player. Okay, so keep that in mind. And let's go back up here. So what do these mean? Well, the first one is values market size. Well, they've got them in different orders, so we'll go through here. Prestige should be obvious. If it's not, your team has a prestige. LSU's is 90. If I am recruiting a player, all things being equal, I've got 10 points, you've got 10 points, and whatnot, and I've got a 90 prestige and you've got a 50 prestige, and the player values prestige right here, he's probably going to sign with me. Not guaranteed 100%, but I should be able to land that player over you. Values playing time. This is interesting because, and I do want to kind of deviate here a little bit to kind of explain the ratings in this game. Let's come up and look at my roster. And I want to look at, you can see when I do my drop down by position, each position has an average rating, okay, which they call an OVR, overall rating, okay. So let's look at my guards, just for, giggles. All right, and I'm going to sort these from high to low. So I've got this 5-star sophomore. He's a 91. I've got a 3-star that's an 84, a 3-star that's an 83, a 4-star that's an 82, and a 5-star that's an 82. Now these guys are all freshmen. Now, without looking at their cards or anything else, you're looking, okay, well, these two freshmen, or this freshman and sophomore, are better than these guys. But when you're looking at the overall, you go, well, why does it have these 3-star guys better than these 4 and 5-star guys? You have to keep in mind, first off, that's only based on today. This is a fluid rating. Okay, it will change year to year as the player rating changes. Remember, we just did training camp. Some players get better, some get worse, some don't change. So odds are, by the time this Leonardo Butcher is a senior and he is developed into this 5-star player, he will probably be a 90 plus player on his OVR, on his rating. These guys are probably still going to be in this mid 80s range. So today they may be equally talented, but he should get better over time and be a better player as he develops into his sophomore, junior, and senior year. Now, the other thing is, this is their current rating, and we're looking at guards. Keep that in mind. This is their rating among all the guards in the game. Only guards. Okay? Now, this does not include anybody that we can recruit this year. The recruits have an OVR, which is judged against these guys, okay? But it's every guard in the country. LSU, Tulane, UCLA, Oregon, Penn State, Wyoming, Middle Tennessee State, you name it. All those schools are kind of thrown in the pot, and then they're given a rating based on their skills against every other guard in the country. Okay, so I may have all 80s and 90s. You may have 40s and 50s. Yes, that means mine are better than yours, but if you are in let's say the MAC conference, well, you're not going to always have SEC caliber players. So your 50s and 60s may still be by far the better players in your conference. You have to kind of look at the other teams to determine that. And remember, these numbers are fluid, so as we recruit players next year, they're going to come in. The seniors are going to graduate. And they'll go through another training camp. These numbers will all change at some point. So again, I do go back to the stars, which may be wrong, but I believe this 82 5-star player is eventually going to work his way up into the 90s and become one of my better players. I mean, he's a sophomore in his 90s already, and you saw like one of my guys had a 7-point improvement. Well, if he has a 7-point improvement next year, he becomes an 89. Odds are these guys just aren't going to have the overall talent to get up to an 89 even as seniors. So, they're probably capped out, maybe 1 or 2 more points. This guy's got more upside and can move up. So keep that in mind when you're looking at all this. I hope that makes sense. Let's go back to recruiting. All right, so that was dealing with playing time. Okay, so the reason I brought that up is if a player values playing time, and again, when you do your interview, that would be right here, then the player actually looks at your roster. Well, the game does, but it's like the player looking at your roster and going, okay, I want to play. How many players does he have on his team? So like their example is, if you are recruiting a player and then you have a 95 rated redshirt freshman at the same spot, it's going to be a negative on you because the player goes, hey, well, they've already got a freshman that's redshirting. I'm going to have to sit behind him for 3 or 4 more years. I may never play. And so he may go, well, I'd rather go to this other school that maybe has a lower prestige or doesn't have as good a chance to win, but I can play. So that's what that talks about. Market size, okay, here's an issue. So again, first off, anything that I say in here, if you have any information that either supports or proves me wrong, I want to know about it. Leave comments, whatever, so everybody can benefit from the knowledge. Okay. Now here's one that I have an issue with. Sorry about that. Need to wet the whistle. Values market size. Basically, this says it aligns. It's very similar to whatever your conference prestige is. Now, this is dynamic, just like a team prestige. You know, this can change. So, in real life, let's look. The Big Ten 2 or 3 years ago was not considered a very good conference. Jim Harbaugh got hired by Michigan. They've had now back-to-back top 5 classes in the country. They had 4 teams at one point in the final in the top 10 in the country last year. The Big Ten has really gained in perceived prestige of that conference. So just like that, this game is going to adjust as well. Here's my problem. In looking at my team, LSU, nowhere in here, quick stats. Nope, nothing about a conference prestige. Standings by conference, nothing in here about a conference prestige. Media, nothing in here about conference prestiges. Okay, so how do we know what the conference prestige is? I know what my team prestige is, and I guess I could go and add up every team and divide by the number of teams and get an average, but that's a real pain in the ass, personally. If this is something that we're supposed to be able to know, which according to the guide here we should, where is this at? Please let us know. Inquiring minds want to know. Where is this conference prestige? So basically what they're saying, though, is if we're looking at this guy and he values market size right here, that's not the size of the city. That's the conference prestige. Well, how do I know if I'm recruiting against a Pac-12 team? How do I know what their conference prestige is? I mean, is that something that we just guess at? Something that can make or break on a recruit. That doesn't seem that we should be guessing at a whole lot. So where is that information? And especially let's think long term, because I'm in 2 other leagues that use another game. One of the leagues is in its 25th season. We've been playing since 2005, the real year, and it's our 3rd iteration of the league. And our current league on Sim Nation, we just finished our quarter-century league season. If a new guy joins that league today, does he really have to go and root through 25 years of web pages to try to get a grasp of where a conference is at from a perceived prestige standpoint? That's not really fair, and doesn't make it easy for new people to want to come into a league or buy your game, if that's why they're buying the game, is to join a league. So where is that information at? Anyway, I beat a dead horse there. Values winning should be obvious, but they're not looking just at the current year. Hey, I'm 11-0 this year and I can't get any recruits. Well, I went 10-3 last year and I finished 2nd in the SEC West. Oh, okay. Well, so I've got a history of winning 10 or more games, winning bowl. I've won a bowl game. So if they value winning, that's what they're looking at. If you've gone 3-9, 3-9, 5-6, and then you're 8-0 this year, and you go, hey, I'm not signing any recruits, and I'm 8-0. Yeah, but you've got 3 or 4 seasons of being a losing program behind you. That's also what they're looking at. So keep that in mind. Values close to home. Now here is something this does a little different, and this is really good to know. The game uses real distances. So as they note, high schools close to a state border might be closer to an out-of-state program than to a big college at the other end of the state. Now I live in Houston, Texas. I live in the Houston area. So let's say that there's a guy in El Paso that's a really good player that I want to recruit to the University of Houston. Okay. Hey, he's in my state. He's close to, that's close to home because and most games would do that. In state would be a kicker. But El Paso's over 800 miles away from Houston. Think about that, 800 miles to get to El Paso from Houston. You can't even make the drive in one day. It's a multi-day drive. So he's actually closer to New Mexico than he is to Houston or Austin or where UT or Waco for Baylor or Dallas for SMU. He's closer to New Mexico State. Now what does he value? If it's close to home, then that might be a player that a low-end team like New Mexico State could go after. So what the game gives you there is it gives you the ability to sort by distances, okay, and look at that. All right. So some guys actually say, hey, only one guy I think told me he only recruits within 300 miles. Okay. So there's some possibilities there. Gulf Breeze, Florida is, oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was 40 miles. That's certainly not right. All right, so close to home. So that's an important thing there. Now, a player will have a rating in each category. So he might have one that you meet perfectly, but and another team might be like third best in that category, but they might be the best in 3 other categories that are also relatively high. Okay. Now, how many points off? The AI goes hard after its targets with as many points as it can afford, but it's subsequently very sensitive to the prospect of losing and will shift targets. So recruiting against the computer is a lot different from recruiting against other human beings that may not make the same decisions. But if you're playing for us, knowing that we're playing the computer, we can benefit from that basically. That if they think they're going to lose, they'll probably come off of that player, whereas a human might say, hey, well, I've got a pretty close shot, maybe that other team's a 90% and I'm an 80%, but I'm going to keep on him with 10 points every week, and so you have to pay attention to that. All right, so that's the guide. Again, that's good reading, if nothing else, to give you some insight and information, training camp information, what the drills do, position drills, athletic training. Here's where they talk about that 25 points. Okay, so anyway, there's also some stuff about game planning down there. But this is about recruiting mainly, so that's what I wanted to get into. So let's get into the meat and potatoes here. We've still got about 8.5 minutes for this video. All right, so we've got our position counts looked at. We've determined who we want to recruit or what positions. All right, now I'm going to sort by distance, and you have targets and both. Well, right now I want both, which is the default, and I want to recruit. Quarterback was my first position. So I'm going to sort, this toolbar is this side, and this part right here is my targets. All right, so all the quarterbacks within 300 miles. Well, this is actually reassuring because in the first video that I started to do, I only had 5 quarterbacks total in the country that were within 300 miles. So this is actually good. We want to go all. All right, so I'm going to add him, and we're going to add him, and we're going to add him. All right, now here is what I want to try. So we've got auto recruiting off, which is where I screwed up last time. All right, now DISP, and I don't know who that is, but hey, thanks for responding. I appreciate the feedback. So we're going to try DISP's process here. So we're going to put 10 points on all of our people and 5 points on all of your targets from, and then schedule interviews after week 2 or with leftover points. Okay, so max points in recruiting, and you saw I went from 232 to 222, and I'm going to put 5 scouting points, so I'm going to go from 73 to 68. Now, you can go as high as 20, but I've only got 73. So by putting 20, I basically max out my certainty report, but I can only do 3 players a week, whereas by doing 5 points, I will get a little bit of information, and it may take me 5 or 6 weeks to get that all the way up to maximum, but I'm able to do more players. So that's something you can judge. Last year I tried doing 20 points and it did not work. This year I was trying, 5 points. Now, if you schedule an interview, that takes 5 points from scouting as well. So normally I would schedule my interviews first, but according to DISP, he wants to start getting some insight to the players, which makes sense. So we're going to follow his suggestion. And if you have suggestions you want me to try, of course, by the time you start seeing these, I'll probably be already done recording this season. And we're going to go ahead. I'm going to offer the scholarship. He's number 10 in the country. I want him. I'm going to offer him. We're going to put 10 and 5 on him as well. And I'm going to put 10 points on him. I need to scout him a little bit, I guess. So I'm gonna put 5 there as well. But we aren't going to offer him. All right, so that gives me that. The next one was free safety. That was another need position. All right. Now, if I hadn't gotten enough players in my 300, then I would have upped that to 500 miles, and then I would have been looking for people that play close to home is not a primary concern. But by staying within 300 miles, you're doing, you're taking advantage of anybody that does want to play close to home, and that kind of ties in with the normal recruiting philosophy in real life that, you recruit your own backyard. You try to build a wall. LSU is an example. You build a wall around Louisiana, and you don't let kids from Louisiana go elsewhere. And it's only typically the traders from North Louisiana, which is actually southern Arkansas, that they'll jump ship and go to Alabama or something like that anyway. All right, so he's a 4-star. We're going to go ahead and add him. Now see, this is where we jump from 174 up to 402. Now he may be okay, but I'm going to go ahead and do this guy with our 10 and 5, offer him a scholarship. But now I'm going to go to 500 miles out, and that opens up quite a few other players. So we were at 174 and then down into the 400s. So how about we look at this guy from Mississippi, and we'll do 10 and 5 and a scholarship to him. And then this guy from Arkansas, and we'll do 10 and 5, but I'm not going to offer him a scholarship yet. Okay, then we'll go back to 300 miles, and the next one is tight end. All right, so I've got a guy from Texarkana, so we're going to go after, I'm going to go after both of these guys. All right, 10 and 5, 10 and 5, offers to both. All right, next one was tackle. All right, really nobody there. Now I do need 2 tackles, so I'm going to go ahead and take the best guy that I can get, because that's kind of like okay, well, you can get him probably, but then we're going to have to reach. Now number 12, I'm guessing he's going to have a lot of attention. So I'm going to look a little farther down. You know, you may want to at least pop some points on him, but you know, well, you know, I tell you what, let's go ahead and add him, and we'll put 10 points on him. Instead of scouting him, I'm going to interview this guy. That still takes 5 points, but it will give me some insight to him that then I can determine, do I have a shot at landing him? Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and offer him as well. But that's going to be one of those guys that I've got to remember to come off of pretty quickly if things don't look good. All right, we want to go back to 300. Now we're looking at linebackers. All right, so this guy, hey, that's actually where I live. All right, Humble High School, or you know, somewhere over here. Let's see. Oh, Atascocita High School. That's actually where my kids go to school. Cool. That's pretty impressive. All right, so we're going to go ahead and offer him. I only need one there, so we're going to go ahead and come down to strong safety. All right, I'm going to go after this Henson kid. And we're going to do 10 and 5. Now see, I only have 8 points left, and I've got 10 scholarships to go. So, all right, wide receiver, 832. Now we're getting into the ones that I want but don't need. So, if I don't get these guys, then that's going to be okay. I'm going to do 4 points to cut that in half. All right, that was the timer. We're going to go ahead and put a cut in here, and we'll come back right there in the next video. Thanks for watching.